It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
That's caught! Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Richie right to the rim, driving score! He would not be denied!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Sponsored by Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Kyle Ireland. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Mitch Harper, Kyle Ireland with you. BYU's getting ready to take on the Utah Utes at the Huntsman Center tonight. We're about 5.5 hours away until tip-off. It's 2:35 here in Salt Lake City. Pre-game begins tonight at 7 p.m., tip-off at 8 here on KSL News Radio. This was BYU basketball head coach Kevin Young on getting another opportunity at the against the Utes at the Huntsman Center. Last year, BYU lost in the Huntsman Center. This was KY.
Yeah, still ticked that we lost that one. I know Trevin Nell's somewhere mad that he missed those free throws, and just want to go up there and get a win. Bottom line, it's like it's interesting for me. I obviously grew up in the church, but I never really grew up just like a super huge BYU fan. I mean, I always respected the program and what it stood for and things like that, but so I didn't grow up with the hate, right? And now that I've been here and you kind of experience it, like you just want to go up there and beat those guys, and so a little personal flavor too, knowing Alex and Wes, their GM, it'll be, I've known those guys for a long time, so it'll be fun to compete against those guys. You tack on the rivalry component. It'll mean a lot for guys like Richie, for his last time to be able to try to get a win in their building. It'll be fun.
So simple, yet so profound. The classic KY type of commentary. I love how his honesty and saying, you know what, I didn't grow up necessarily a BYU guy. Member of the church, of course, but wasn't always a BYU guy. But it only took 1 year to get that hate flowing through him for the BYU-Utah rivalry. He clearly wants this. I remember last year at the Huntsman Center, he was saying, he's like, in the post-game press conference, moments after they lost, he's like, honestly, it was a, good game. He's like, my kids came to the game and I thought we were about to walk into the UFC octagon with what I was told about this place. I love that comment from KY last year. Your favorite memories, you and I grew up in this thing, BYU-Utah. Some of your favorite memories in the BYU-Utah rivalry. Basketball.
Yeah, I'll preface it. Yeah, football. I'll preface it by saying I'm so glad that these two teams are back in the same league because it just has some juice to it again. Mm-hmm. And the WCC era was just, there were some fun games, some fun memories, but it just didn't have the pizzazz. And now it does again, just like it did back in the Mountain West and obviously prior leagues to that. But I'm going to say from recent years in particular, my favorite is just the Yoli dunk. Mm-hmm. I love the Yoli dunk. And that one, Yoli was such an important piece to the last decade of BYU, and a guy that could have left, decided to stay, that, had that moment. We think back to rivalry games, and you think to the football game this year, Bears hurdle, the Bear touchdown run. That's what the Yoli dunk was. And I know that you're probably going to take the Jimmer example here because that's another easy one, but the Yoli dunk, I think, is a good example of that in recent years of a highlight moment for BYU that meant something in a big win. I love that one. The Jimmer Fredette from 40 feet. Yeah. Oh! That's a great call right there. Yeah, that was great. I was in the Huntsman Center for that one. Another one that I think is so underrated, and it gets just forgotten because BYU was very mediocre at this time. It was in 2002. When BYU was down 21 and they stormed back. The Clemson game in Madison Square Garden exceeded that. It was the biggest comeback in the second half for BYU now. But before that, it was 2002 against Utah. Travis Hansen, Eric Nielsen. That was a big comeback to extend the long home winning streak at the Marriott Center. I love that game. You go back to the 90s when Robbie Reed hit a half-court shot at the horn to take down Utah inside the Huntsman Center. I think of
2007 when BYU finally broke through at the Huntsman Center. That was the year they won the Mountain West title. And Keeney Young, I remember, had a huge game in that one. Trent Playstead as well. I think, too, of the 2000 season, the Mountain West Conference Tournament, when BYU broke through in the Mountain West Tournament semifinals and beat Utah for the first time after losing, I think, 15 straight to the Utes. And so there's just been great moments in this rivalry. I mean, even going back in the 70s and 80s, some classics as well. But I think the Big 12 does add an awesome stage. I think it's interesting, though, because BYU is just at a high level right now, and it's the type of game, honestly, where BYU should cruise against Utah. Like, if BYU is as good as everyone says, and look, we've seen them a lot this year, they're awesome. It's a good team. But, go into these road spots. Road games can always be tricky in college basketball. But I thought how they performed against K-State was really impressive. But I love the rivalry in basketball. I think it sometimes gets a little bit underappreciated because football is so big, and I get that. But there's a lot of history between BYU and Utah in basketball. I'm always of the belief, though, that sometimes the BYU-Utah basketball rivalry doesn't get as much appreciation from a historical perspective because there wasn't as much video footage as, say, the football games in the 70s and 80s. There's not much video and photos from those games. Like, you got to, you're tapping into your memories. Like, I was trying to dig up some photos from the 2002 game that I was talking about was the huge comeback. There's really nothing online unless you get maybe and tap into BYU photo. KSL, we have a great archive. Like, I love diving into the archive and going back to some of these old games. I'm just like, wow, this is so awesome watching this. But for a lot of people, really the memories start to begin in the rivalry between the Jimmer Fredette era and to now. And it's been a really good time for BYU. I think, BYU, not enough respect is given to the fact that they pretty much own this rivalry, but Utah is really good in their home gym. And that's something that I think is a fun storyline here is that, yes, it's a roster for BYU and for Utah outside of Keanu Dawes, where really no one has ties to this thing. This is all kind of new to them. But when you do get the rivalry dynamic, I think you tell the stories of this thing, it gets people inspired, and winning in the Huntsman Center has been a house of horrors over the years for BYU, so that's the task in front of KY and this group to get it done. And let's dive into the matchup in our three-pointer, where we give you some stats, some players, some bold predictions for this game. And let's start things off with a stat to watch. What do you got, Kyle?
My stat for this game, Mitch, is 3. Utah has 3 players that average scoring in double figures this season. Terrence Brown leads them at 21.4 points per game. Don McHenry and Keanu Dawes, who you just mentioned, also score in double figures. I think that BYU needs to shut down one of those guys. They can't have a big 3 as far as their scoring is concerned. If BYU can take one of them out, and really I think part of that is limiting Terrence Brown from having a game where he pops off. BYU does that, BYU wins comfortably.
For me, the stat to watch is 80.1. That's the amount of points Utah allows this season. They're in the bottom 35 nationally in scoring defense, and that's music to the ears of BYU, who has a high-powered offense. So Utah, they give up a lot of points. Players to watch in this game for me, obviously BYU stars. I'd also add Keba Keita just because the questionable ankle status. How does he look in this game against his former team? And for Utah, I'd say Seydou Traore, 6'6", 220-pound forward who started every game this season for the Utes. He's kind of an X-factor type of guy. There's always an X factor that maybe not many people talk about in these rivalry games. Last year was Ezra Asar, who's now at USC for Utah. Seydou Traore, one to watch for the Utes. He wears number 0.
Yeah, the guys I'm looking at for Utah are Don McHenry and Jacob Patrick. And the reason why I'm looking at both of them is they're the only players on Utah's roster that are averaging more than 40-point percentage from 3-point range. And I think that if Utah is able to win, they're going to pop off from that.
Just for the record, Patrick is out for tonight.
Is he out tonight?
He's missed the last 6 games.
And I would say for BYU, Richie Saunders, just the emotional aspect of this game from Richie and being able to bounce back. I think Keba Keita is also one you have to watch just because of his history in the rivalry as well.
Bold predictions for this one. What do you got?
I think that you took mine. And so I'm going to go with AJ Debonsa.
You can take it too?
No. We're going to let you have it.
Okay.
I'm going to say a different one about AJ Debonsa. I'm going to say AJ has another triple-double.
Okay. That'd be awesome. I'm going to say AJ goes for 40. Some historic
I think it's
night.
a great take.
I think
Sets up nicely for him.
it just, look, he probably never thought he was going to get caught up in the BYU-Utah rivalry when he was growing up in Brockton, Massachusetts. But AJ is just special. And I thought KY made a great point on his coach's show this week. I think it holds up. AJ is getting his and enhancing his teammates, but he's doing it with teammates that are all conference guys. Richie Saunders is a first-team All-Big 12 guy. Rob Wright is an All-Big 12 type of player and probably an NBA draft pick. And he's still, AJ, getting his on very highly efficient nights. And I would argue that, there's another gear to his game. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a big game for AJ Debonsa, and he's going to etch his name in BYU versus Utah lore. But I'd love to see a triple-double too. That would be great to see because it's becoming almost a tradition now, post-game tradition, where all the hoop head accounts on social media just instantly post all the stat lines from AJ every single game because he is a must-see watch for everyone that loves watching basketball. Let's take our final timeout. We'll give you score predictions next. Myself, Kyle Ireland, will get our score prediction from our producer, Nate Slack, as well. It's Cougar Sports Saturday, powered by KSL Sports.